There are 530 days until America decides who should be president and control Congress. And today, the president and Congress are still deciding how to raise the nation's borrowing limit. But nobody seems to think the U.S. will default on its debts, even though the alleged X-date is just a week away. For the latest, we turn to Weijia Jiang, CBS News senior White House correspondent, and Scott MacFarlane, CBS News congressional correspondent. They are at their respective posts on either end of Pennsylvania Avenue. Weijia, I want to begin with you, with what President Biden had to say earlier about the ongoing talks. Let's take a listen.
It is time for Congress to act now. Now, I want to be clear that the negotiations we're having with Speaker McCarthy is about the outlines of what the budget will look like, not about default. It's about competing visions for America.
You have some new reporting on the deal that the White House is hoping for. What do you know?
So it's really telling there that the president is trying to make the distinction that all of these talks and negotiations are strictly about the budget and not about defaulting, which he says is not up for question. But of course, if you ask Kevin McCarthy, he would say that he wouldn't even begin to have those conversations about raising the debt ceiling if the president weren't ready to talk about deep spending cuts. And we know now that the current proposal on the table from the White House includes extending the debt ceiling until, or I should say, until 2025. They don't have a specific date in year. I am told that the whole point is that it will go through 2024. So if there were to be some sort of a showdown over the debt ceiling again, it would at least be after the 2024 presidential election. This is not something that the White House wants the president to go through again publicly in this way. Secondly, it would resend unspent COVID relief funds. Those are funds that have already been approved but not allocated, up to $30 billion, although they haven't agreed on an exact figure for that either. And it would freeze spending for 2 years. And the White House says because of that, that really equals cuts of $1 trillion because they're factoring in inflation, they're factoring in all the things they would be spending more money on and saying that, you know, that 2-year period of not spending will actually equal $1 trillion. Of course, I'm sure Scott will tell you the Republicans have a very different interpretation of what spending cuts means.
I was going to say, when they can't even agree on the math, that's never a good sign. But Scott, Speaker McCarthy also sounded optimistic earlier today. Let's listen to what he said.
We worked well past midnight last night, and yesterday I thought was a very good day. I thought we made some progress. There's still some outstanding issues, and I've directed our teams to work 24/7 to try to solve this problem.
Keep working 24/7. Is he going to be able to get this done? And do we have any sense now, Scott, of when or by when they have to get it done?
We know they've left town. They bailed out of here midday today with a long holiday weekend in front of them, and the House leaders reinforced this statement they've been making through the course of the negotiations, that they're going to put whatever agreement comes through into legislative language and give members 3 full days to look at it, which kind of shrinks that time frame even further and really does push things into the middle of next week, in which other variables will surface. Will the U.S. Senate try to slow or stop whatever agreement comes through? One Republican senator from Utah today says he has grave concerns and might employ parliamentary tools to slow things further. That June 1st clock is ticking louder and louder, and as we race toward the clock, every indication tonight is that the negotiators are still talking, which means they're still racing in quicksand.
That's one way of putting it. And the idea that he's going to give this 3 days to marinate in this environment where there have been so many concerns expressed by the far left and the far right will be something to see if it indeed comes to pass. You know as well, Scott, that progressive Democrats up on the Hill have been concerned about this, that the president may be negotiating away key party priorities. But you spoke with a more moderate Democrat today who shared a different view.
Yeah, Ed, there's been this phrase hostage-taking used by Democrats to describe what the Republican leadership's doing in the House, that they've taken the debt ceiling as a negotiation tool despite it being so dangerous, despite it being potential economic nitroglycerin. Washington State Democrat Adam Smith, top member of the House Armed Services Committee for Democrats, defended the president's decision to engage in these negotiations. Should there be negotiations? I mean, should the White House be engaging in this?
Well, they are engaging in this.
Should they be?
Well, yes. I mean, if somebody takes a hostage, I was like, I'm not going to negotiate with a hostage taker. Do you care about the hostage? Yes. well, then you're where you're at. The president cares about making sure that we don't default on our debt. The Republicans have taken a hostage. He's got to talk to them.
Democrats are still pushing for that discharge petition, Ed, trying to get Republicans to sign off on a debt ceiling increase without their leadership's blessing.
Yeah, well, we'll see where this goes. Weijia, real quick on another topic. The president today making history in his pick for the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Tell us a little bit more about Air Force General C.Q. Brown.
That's right, Ed. This is a man who seems to be the man for this moment, as the White House describes him as someone who is deeply versed in all things in the Indo-Pacific region as tensions arise with China. He is also familiar with all the, situations that are unfolding with the war in Russia. But you're right, he is making history. He has already done that because he was the first black man to lead any branch of the military. And now, because the defense secretary is also a black man, that is, of course, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, it is the first time in U.S. history that the top positions at the Pentagon, the military and civilian positions, are held by black men. And I think it's really fitting, Ed, because General Brown made news in 2020 because he filmed in uniform a deeply personal and emotional message about the killing of George Floyd. And he made headlines about that because he did that in a way that we hadn't really seen before when you're talking about, a general in uniform. And today marks, of course, 3 years since George Floyd was murdered. And so I think it's a very moving piece also for the White House, this White House in particular, that puts such a priority on trying to unite the country.
Yeah, and we'll see how long it takes for his nomination to get through. Weijia Jiang at the White House, Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill, thank you both.